Hello, and welcome to the Red Fox Roundup, where we come full circle on the hottest sport news of the week. Alongside Pete Denota and John Butensky, I'm your host, Ross Lippy. Tonight, we will be discussing the big news around the NFL, the playoff race, and the MLB, and we will be sending it to our correspondents to talk about soccer and fantasy football. Let's begin by inflating Brady's ego as he joined the 400 touchdown club. Pete, what are your thoughts on Brady's achievements, and do you think he has the capability of throwing 500 when it's all said and done?
It's definitely a huge accomplishment, 400 touchdowns. The only people that have ever done it, Dan Marino, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning. As for 500, I think it's in reach. He's got 9 touchdowns this year through 3 games, so that puts him on about 48 touchdowns for the year. Bring him back to 440. He says he has another 3 to 5 years left in him. I think he could definitely get to 500, maybe even break Payne's record of all time. This year, it seems like he's going out for redemption for Deflategate, much like 2007, when he was coming back from Spygate and the Patriots were for that. But it looks like he's going for a historic season this year.
Yeah, it always seems like Brady has a chip on his shoulder. John, what are your thoughts?
At age 38, he's still able to do it somehow. Just leading the Patriots offense. He's always had that go-to guy, either be Welker or Randy Moss or Rob Gronkowski. But the thing that makes Brady so special is that he's able to make players who are lesser caliber as a weapon, like the guys I mentioned before, able to make them better as a player. And if
like Julian Edelman.
Exactly, yeah. And if a quarterback in the league can do that to make anyone better, and you're thinking about a Hall of Fame quarterback right there. And it's coming from a Jets fan also, but like Pete said, also with a company like that, with Manny Marino and Favre, it's very impressive as well. And I think he could definitely reach 450 touchdowns. If he averages about, I think he definitely has about 2 or 3 years left. And whether he throws about 20 plus TDs a year, he's definitely going to reach 450. But 500's a reach, but it's definitely possible though.
Yeah, and at this point last year, people were ruling him out, saying his career was over. They were calling for Jimmy Garoppolo. It was actually this past week when they played Kansas City and the famous we're on to Cincinnati thing happened. So it's amazing what a full year it does for Brady.
So taking things out west, the Arizona Cardinals off to a very impressive start so far. Are they legit? Do you think they can be a potential powerhouse?
I don't know. Like last year, they were off to a great start. Then Carson Palmer tore his ACL, and they skidded down the line. They had to go to the third-string quarterback, I believe. But they're leading the league in scoring with 42 points per game, and they're doing with the solid running game without their starter Andre Ellington, who sprained his PCL in his knee. Chris Johnson was brought in end of training camp. Last week he had 22 carries for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then their third-round draft pick, David Johnson, he's been the game breaker. He came out of Northern Iowa, no expectations, and he's made a big impact. But the thing that's really carrying them is their defense. They're 3rd overall in points per game with 16.3, 5th overall for total yards per game. And Calais Campbell, Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, all 3 of them are carrying their defense.
Yeah, like Pete said, it's going to depend on health. I mean, they have a healthy Carson Palmer. It's definitely going to help. Like he said, Andre Ellington's out for a couple weeks with a knee injury. But I personally love David Johnson. I think he hasn't done the majority of the carries because Johnson.
But there's potential.
Exactly, it's potential. He can be a really good back, I believe. And also just to talk about the receiving core. In my opinion, they have an underrated receiving core with obviously Larry Fitzgerald. I think a very good player in John Brown and Michael Floyd, an early round draft pick from a couple years ago. So if those guys, they can play well also, then I think that team can do pretty well. And also with the defense, like Pete said, Patrick Peterson's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's just such a dynamic player. And also with their victory over the 49ers last week, they had 2 TDs as a defense, and that's very good as well. It's always going to help.
Yeah, I completely agree. Before Palmer went down last season, the Cardinals were out to an 8-1 start, so we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, in their last 18 games that Palmer started, they're 16-2. So
exactly.
That's unbelievable.
So 3 weeks into the season, approaching week 4, any big takeaways, surprises, disappointments this year?
My surprise is the Carolina Panthers. No one thought they would come out of the gate 3-0. Cam Newton is carrying that offense. Going into the season, there was question marks whether if he was even going to be good because he had no options on the his receivers. But he's making things work. He has 685 yards passing with 5 touchdowns, 144 yards rushing. He's doing it on the ground too with 2 touchdowns. That's 829 yards total for one guy through the air and on the ground. And in the last 2 games combined, he scored 6 touchdowns. And the reason why they're 3-0 so far is their defense. They give up 16 points per game. When you give up 16 points per game, you're going to win games. And that's without Luke Kuechly for the past week and a half. Their defense is run by their past 2 first-round picks, Star Lotulelei. I don't know how to say his name.
Close enough.
Yeah, and Shaq Thompson out of Washington. So it's good to see that their draft picks are coming through for them.
And I'm going to stick with specific players, actually. I'm going to go with the rookies first, after the first and second round picks. I had high expectations for Jameis Winston coming in, obviously being with the first overall pick, and he's done all right. He's had 4 TDs and 3 interceptions so far, but his offensive line obviously isn't helping out. And we knew that was an issue coming into the season, but just
playing for the Buccaneers is an issue.
It's a tough situation right now. But it's going with Mariota, who I thought needed some time. He was a good quarterback in college, obviously, but he tended to run the football a lot. But we knew he had that good arm also, and he's certainly showing it. He has 8 TDs in his first 3 games, which is tied for a record with a rookie quarterback in his first 3 games. And he's found a really nice partner in tight end Delanie Walker, he's really has that connection with him. And I think good things to come for Tennessee.
What about teams that have disappointed you guys?
I got to say the Miami Dolphins. They signed Ndamukong Suh to I think it was a record-breaking contract, right? And they have the best defensive line in the NFL, and they only had 1 sack through 3 games. That's disgraceful. And on the offensive side, Ryan Tannehill's having a decent year, but the receivers aren't stepping up for him, and there's no running game. Lamar Miller is averaging 3.5 yards per carry. You can't win games like that.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts haven't been playing that well at all, especially with Andrew Luck. It's hurting my fantasy team also, but him and Chuck Pagano just aren't in sync. There's just something not right there, and I think they can definitely figure it out because that team is too good offensively not to figure out, especially bringing in Andre Johnson, who just hasn't been used at all in any of the games. They have brought in Frank Gore, obviously. They have a first-round pick they used on Philip Dorsett in a rookie. But they need to figure it out, and I think they can, though, because that team is just too good not.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent there. I think they'll turn it around also.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying about Chuck Pagano, there's some rumors that he might not return as the head coach next year in Indianapolis. Is this a legitimate possibility?
It's just a bad situation. Whenever you get into the whole he's not returning next year and there's a lame duck coach in the system, it's just bad. It's much like the 49ers last year with Harbaugh, where there was rumors before the season even started, not even like week 3 like it is for Pagano.
We saw how that turned out.
Yeah, and it was just a mess. And then I think they finished 8-8, missed the playoffs after making the NFC Championship game the 3 previous years. And I don't think it's Pagano's fault. It's mostly the GM's fault. He's given him nothing to work with. The offensive line's horrible. Andrew Luck's been sacked 5 times through 3 games and is hit almost every other play.
I think we need to realize something. We're also 3 games into the season. I mean, this is so early to be talking about this. I mean,
it's also the contract situation, though. His contract expires at the end of the year.
Yeah.
He turned down the contract contract offer for a 1-year deal. He wanted a multi-year deal, and that's what started the whole feud.
You know what? They just need to figure out what's going on right now at the team, not in the future. They need to figure out the situation right now. The contract shouldn't be a concern right now. And the team, like I said earlier, the team's just too good not to figure out what's going on right now.
Yeah. So there were some pretty severe injuries over the weekend, in particular Ben Roethlisberger of the Pittsburgh Steelers going down. What does that mean for Steelers and fans? Should they be concerned?
I think it's going to be tough for the Steelers. Big Ben's the face of the franchise, has been there for, I believe, 12 years now. But the thing is, they're bringing in Mike Vick, who's an established NFL quarterback. He's seen the light at the end of the tunnel of his career, but he has good weapons around him. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant's coming back in a week or 2. So I think it'll help. He doesn't have the deep ball like he used to, but Antonio Brown's able to run those short routes. He's able to just dump it off and take off. Same thing with Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, it's you got to feel bad for the Pittsburgh Steelers because there's just so many highs and lows so far early into the season. Highs getting Le'Veon Bell back, and like you said, Martavis Bryant also in a week or 2. But then Roethlisberger getting injured. I don't think Vic's the guy to get it done. He hasn't really been a capable starter in the past couple of years, and they need to go after a guy. I'm not saying Matt Castle, but a Matt Castle-like starter that wouldn't cost that much to trade for or sign on the free agent market and is durable but not an amazing quarterback. They need to figure something out because Vic's just not the answer.
Yeah, I agree. Sticking with injuries, DeMarco Murray, he's a little bit banged up and hasn't quite lived up to the hype that he was able to last year. So what's going on in Philadelphia and those running backs?
When they signed him, I knew it wasn't going to be a good signing or free agent acquisition because in Dallas, he was behind the best offensive line in the league.
Multiple first-round picks.
I think 4 or 5 of them were first-round picks, which is ridiculous. And also Philadelphia, it's a scheme thing. In Dallas, he was a north-south runner. In Philadelphia, he's east-west, then cut-up field. He's not that type of running back, and that's why he's suffering.
Yeah, it's a mess in Philly right now. And obviously, Darren Sproles and Ryan Matthews, they're playing well. but you spent all this money on Murray. You should be able to use him and take advantage of how good he could be once he comes back from the injury. But it's also good news that Sproles and Matthews can still produce at this level.
Yeah, Chip Kelly made a pretty good decision in the offseason bringing in 2 new backs. So when Murray does go down like this, it's not the end of the world. Ryan Matthews had a great performance last week. Moving over to Chicago, they made some big moves over the weekend, moving out Jared Allen and John Bostic. What's going on there?
They're getting ready for the NFL draft. They want the first overall pick. They realize they don't have a good team. Jay Cutler went down. He's going to miss a couple of weeks. They're just getting ready, salary dumps, getting ready for the first overall pick.
You have to fire salary, like what Pete said, pretty much. I mean, and also the moves for the Panthers and Patriots. They're not blockbuster deals, but they're nice pickups that are definitely going to help each team. But it's a bad in Chicago right now, especially how talented Alshon Jeffrey is. It's like he's kind of like the star on a team that really can't do anything about it.
It's wasted talent.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, the Bears aren't off to the best start this year, so I guess they're trying anything they can do to help. And so there's a pretty controversial issue over the weekend when one of the officials allegedly told Cam Newton that he wasn't old enough to get a roughing the passer call. What's happening there?
It's kind of interesting because you wonder how many times that actually happens throughout the season or throughout a game with younger players. But I'm surprised because Cam's been in the air for, I believe, 5 years now, and he's saying he doesn't have seniority. He's still young. That's kind of weird. But I'm not thinking too much into it.
I had no expectations for Cam Newton coming into the season, to be honest with you, and he's had a really, really nice season without a number 1 wide receiver, obviously. But it's like with these kind of situations, you just gotta look past it. It's not a big deal. I mean, it's just words that were said, and I think he's got a lot of respect in the NFL because he's having a nice year, but I don't think you should worry about it.
Yeah, it seems like the media is just making something out of nothing. That wraps up our segment about the NFL. Now let's send it out to Frank Mitrotanda, who will be discussing who's hot and who's not in the NFL fantasy world.
I highly recommend picking up Devontae Freeman if he's available in your league. He's going to be the feature fact for the Atlanta Falcons, and he's been moved up number 1 in the depth chart over Tevin Coleman. So he's definitely a must-have in both standard and PPR leagues. Next will be Rashad Matthews. He's been killing it recently, and he's put up double-digit points in both standard and PPR leagues. I understand you might be a little leery to pick him up with top players like Javaris Landry and Jordan Cameron playing for the Dolphins. But he's proven that he can hang with those guys and definitely rack up some points. My next pick would be Leonard Halkerson. He's been moved up on the depth chart higher than Roddy White, who's been putting up terrible numbers in fantasy, absolutely 0 points for back-to-back weeks. So I definitely recommend picking him up if you're looking to replace Roddy White. He's been a favorite target for Matt Ryan, and he's been putting up great numbers in both PPR and standard leagues. So he's definitely my third and last favorite plug-and-play player for the week. If you're looking to replace a quarterback that might have gone injured, such as Tony Romo or Ben Roethlisberger, I highly recommend looking to pick up either Tyrod Taylor, Derek Carr, or take a chance on Mike Vick this week. I know what you're thinking, Mike Vick, yeah, he's really bad. He hasn't really proven much. But he says he's very comfortable with the playbook, and with that Pittsburgh Steelers offense, they have so many weapons. Players like Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown. It's going to be hard for him to do bad. Back to you, Ross.
Thanks, Frank. When we return, we will be discussing the MLB playoff race, including the historic Mets run, as well as the wild card races. Welcome back. This past Saturday, the Mets clinched the NL East, entering the playoffs for the first time since 2006. What kind of run can you see them making during the postseason?
Well, first off, as a Yankee fan, I love to see this, I have to say, because, even though I'm a Yankee fan, you still got to root for the other New York team. And the baseball atmosphere in New York is phenomenal right now because it's just, like you said, from 2006, we haven't seen this before. But I think this team can go very deep in the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series, but I think they can definitely do a lot of damage, considering like their young arms with Harvey, Syndergaard, and DeGrom. Steven Matz, who's a little injured, but I think he'll be all right. And then they have veterans like Cologne and Nice, who could definitely lead that team as well. So they have a lot of options what they can do with a rotation, especially with the NLDS, which is obviously 5 games. So put your best 5 starters out there, I guess. And then the offense has been great as of late, obviously, with Wright coming back from an injury. He's been playing really well since he's been healthy. And obviously, Daniel Murphy and Lucas Duda have been playing great as well. The guys who needed to step up this season, and they're stepping up at the right time. And then obviously the man himself, Yoenis Cespedes. I mean, he's been great. He actually just left the game today in the 3rd inning with a bruised hand, and they said it was 2 fingers, but he should be all right. We'll see what happens. And in the outfield, Michael Conforto has been playing really well as a rookie. He came from Double-A Binghamton, and he's been balcooning really well with Michael Gadire. So we'll see what can happen, but I think this team can go really far.
I'm the opposite of John. I don't see them making it out of the first round versus the Dodgers. The reason being, Dodgers have Kershaw and Greinke 1-2 in the first 2 games, and if they beat up on the Mets hitters the first 2 games, it could take a lot out since they're a young team. So I see Kershaw and Greinke winning games 1 and 2, the Mets winning game 3, and then the Dodgers pitching Kershaw in game 4 on short rest and clinching the series. But if they do make it through past the Dodgers, I see them making it all the way to the World Series, possibly even winning it, because they're on a great run right now. They have a lot of momentum. So if they make it past a great team like the Dodgers, I see them making a huge run.
That's a great point you make. I just want to say one thing. That's a great point you make about the Dodgers, but also Kershaw hasn't performed well in the postseason as well. So
I got this planned out, buddy. Kershaw, he's been awful in the postseason, right? But there's a time for everybody. Even A-Rod hit in the 2009 postseason. Like it's got you can't be bad every year in the postseason.
Right. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
This is the year.
Being a Nationals fan, this is pretty hard to talk about. We'll see just what the Mets can do. So who else do you guys like moving out of the AL and out of the NL?
So with the NL Central, I guess, I mean, obviously the Cardinals clinched it today. I think they can go very far as well. We'll see what can happen because they lost Carlos Martinez and Adam Wainwright's in the bullpen, but with their good rotation, they have good arms, Walker and other guys. But also the offense has been pretty good as well. Matt Adams is back; he's healthy. I am a little concerned about Yadier Molina as catching because he might just make it back for the playoffs. So we'll see what happens. He has a bad thumb from an injury, so we'll see what happens. And then I guess with the West, like we said, the Dodgers can go far. It depends on their 1 and 2, and Puig, he needs to get out of his long season slump as well. And I think they're going to put Corey Seager at shortstop, the rookie, and it's a lot of pressure on him, but we'll see what can happen.
Yeah, for a World Series prediction, if you want one, I'm going Dodgers, Blue Jays, because at first I was going to go Pirates, Blue Jays, but I was watching the Pirates today. They're getting beat up by the Cardinals. They were on a hot streak. They seem to be cooling down. Dodgers have the starting pitching, the 1-2 punch I can see making it through. And the Blue Jays, there's no one hotter than them right now.
The Blue Jays are on.
After those trades, as a Yankee fan, I was like, I'm not going to say the word because we're on air, but it was season over after that.
The Blue Jays made some pretty big transactions at the trade deadline, and it seemed to pay dividends for them.
Absolutely, and especially with Tulowitzki also. He's coming back from an injury.
That's going to be a big bat for the
Ryan Goins has been a nice replacement, but no one beats Troy Tulowitzki when he's healthy.
Top to bottom, their lineup is pretty stacked.
Very good.
And then you have David Price, so.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
That team is not fair.
Marco Estrada also, he's been pitching very well. Or Dickey.
Yeah.
And then also, I just wanted to say with the speaking of the Pirates, I'm excited for this NL wildcard game because you're most likely going to have a pitching matchup of Jake Arrieta, who's having a phenomenal year, in my opinion, the Cy Young Award winner.
Year.
Yeah, he's having a great year. And also with Garrett Cole. So you have your number ones going at it. It's going to be a great postseason.
Especially if it's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Like it's been, or even in Chicago.
Either way.
That'd
be amazing for Cubs fans.
That's going to be a fun game.
It is. It's going to be a really fun game.
Something you guys haven't touched on, though, the Kansas City Royals. I really like them coming out of the American League. They won the American League last year, and I think they have the experience this year to get it done. And I think they might make a World Series run.
They absolutely can be, especially being a wild card team last year. They have the experience. They brought in guys over the offseason like Alex Rios, veteran guys like that can lead the team. The one concern with the Royals is Johnny Cueto has to be his usual self because he's been awful since he's been traded there. He started off well and he's just been awful. He just a really high ERA, not his usual self. But I think the pitching, pitching for the Royals, their bullpen's great, but their starting pitching is going to take them as far as they can go.
It's very iffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ventura, he was the opening day starter. He was in the minor leagues for a week. That you can't really trust someone.
Once Cueto came over, Ventura kind of became that guy they can rely to because he just kind of became that big brother to him and gave him the, just good technique and tips on how to become a better pitcher, and it's worked. But the bullpen's going to take them far, if anything.
Yeah, I think if the Royals play like they're capable of playing, they can play with the best of them.
If they shorten it to a 6-inning game like they did last postseason with 7, 8, 9 in their bullpen, it'll be between them and the Blue Jays. I could see that series going 7 games.
All right, World Series predictions. Who you got?
Wow. All right, I'm not going to say the Yankees because as a diehard Yankee fan, the pitching is just, like I said with the Royals, the pitching is going to take them as far as they can go. But for a World Series prediction, I got to go with the Royals because I have the experience, and I'm going to say I'm going to make a wild prediction and say the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to win the wild card and they're going to somehow make it to the World Series because I just think the atmosphere in Pittsburgh is phenomenal right now.
Pete?
Like I said before, I said Dodgers, Blue Jays. I'm going to go Blue Jays in 6, just based off all the momentum. Toronto's nuts. First time since '93 they've won the division and made the playoffs. So I think they're going to carry that.
I think they're going to raise the Jolly Roger also in Pittsburgh. I think they're going to win it. We'll see what happens.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. Well, that ends our MLB section. Now let's send it out to our soccer correspondents, John Mosho and Doug Cannon.
Thanks, Ross. We'd like to start things off first with talking about the MLS. And let me tell you, the Bulls are running. And by that, I mean the New York Red Bulls. They are the first MLS team to have clinched a postseason spot, which is surprising for many because with first-year head coach Jesse Marsch, and many just wrote off this team. But under the leadership of Bradley Wright Phillips and Sebastian Kleinstadt, as well as some of the younger players like Matt Magaza doing the duties at center back, they've really kicked things off well and have been very successful so far.
Yeah, when Thierry Henry retired 2 years ago, a lot of people thought that the Red Bulls weren't going to be as potent in attack as they have been. And then with the moving on of Tim Cahill, I did not see this team going this far.
Yeah. And it's surprising because they had to completely change their philosophy too. They went from a team with one of the highest salaries to the lowest salaried team, or player salary team in all of the MLS. And look where they've gotten them. It's kind of surprising considering a lot of the teams that are trying to spend a lot more money, like New York City FC and Orlando City, they're kind of on the lower tiers.
Yeah, exactly. It just goes to show that money doesn't make the best team.
Yeah. However, sometimes money gets the best players. And that's clearly the case with Toronto FC because Sebastian Giovinco, God, he's been prime. He's been so good. He's scored 20 goals so far and notched 15 assists. He looks like he's shaping up to be the MVP of this MLS season.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when this 28-year-old went to the MLS because usually people think the MLS is a retirement league. But I mean, yeah, as you said, he's been tearing it up.
Yeah, he's really killing it. And it's kind of surprising that he's really taken the leadership role on a team that has also Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore. So it's cool to see that there's other players out there that can really create a name in the MLS besides those U.S. stars. And lastly, we just wanted to touch a little bit on the U.S. Open Cup between Philadelphia and Kansas City. And basically, Letou scored in the 37th minute to open things up. However, Sporting Kansas City hit back with a Namath goal in the 67th minute, and it went all the way into PKs, where the Union actually brought out backup goalkeeper John McCarthy, who surprisingly has had 4 really clean saves in the USL, but unfortunately it wasn't enough as Sporting Kansas City went on to win in penalty kicks. Now let's go across the pond to Europe. Doug?
Tonight in the Champions League, Manchester United beat Wolfsburg 2-1, thanks to Juan Mata's brilliance. And yesterday, Arsenal really flopped, but it was kind of expected because they're a big team, but they don't always perform in big matches.
Yeah, I've noticed that. They have some moments where they really show their brilliance, but lately it's kind of been rough as they've been trying to piece things together and figure it out.
Yeah, and then tonight Ronaldo notched his 500th career goal, and that's really impressive.
That's quite the accomplishment. But I mean, he's been brilliant for years, going back to Manchester United, and he's really been the man at Real Madrid for so long now that good for him. He's earned it, and I hope to see things coming from him in the future.
Only 30 years old. He could maybe go to the MLS.
Yeah, that's the rumors. He's linked to Herbalife in the LA Galaxy, so maybe in a couple years we'll be seeing him out there.
Now we go to the EPL. Manchester United are number 1 for the first time in 2 years. That's kind of surprising given the talent on Manchester City and Chelsea.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, it's all about the depth. And Manchester United has a very quality, defensive back depth, and they've been able to fill in very nicely for Luke Shaw's absence. So I can see them actually making a very successful run this year.
Yeah, and that can also be accredited to Chelsea's poor start. They're in the bottom half of the table.
Yeah, they really need Hazard and a couple of their other players to really step up and start scoring some goals because they're lacking a bit.
Now we go to the game of the weekend. My pick is the Arsenal-Manchester United game. Players to watch: Juan Mata, he's in the form of his life, and Alexis Sanchez, who just scored a hat-trick against Leicester. Who do you think is going to win that game?
My personal gut feeling is that United's going to pull off another victory. They've just been so hot lately, and I don't really see that slowing down for them. So.
Yeah, I think that too. Back to you, Ross.
Well, that's our show. He's Pete Denoda, that's John Butensky, and I'm Ross Lippy. Join us next week on the Red Fox Roundup.